But let me now introduce to you our first speaker for tonight, John Steenhof. John has actually travelled today from New Zealand via Canberra to be here tonight. John is the Managing Director of the Human Rights Law Alliance, which is a not-for-profit law firm that works to ensure that all Australians can live out their faith and convictions peacefully and without fear, both in private and in public. To achieve this end, the Human Rights Law Alliance provides legal assistance and representation for cases where people and organisations are in trouble with the law for living out their faith. They also produce resources for faith-based organisations to better protect their freedoms. Tonight, John will be sharing stories about people whose religious freedoms have come under attack. So would you please welcome John Steenhof.
Good evening, everybody. It's great to see such a large audience here tonight to hear about religious freedom, and thanks for the introduction, Reverend Tough. I think I would have been a lot better behaved in church as a youngster if I had a minister called Reverend Tough. So I'm here tonight, and I've been asked to tell you some stories. Stories about Australians who are under attack, Australians who are facing hostility for living out their Christian faith in the public sphere. I'm a father of 6 children, so I'm a storyteller who occasionally practices law. So this is right in my wheelhouse. Now, I'm not going to get through all of the stories of all of our clients. We do have a resource here tonight, a glossy brochure, and it is this brochure here, and you can get it from Alex, who's a lawyer working for me, who will be manning the Human Rights Law Alliance desk on the left over there. There's plenty of copies, so please take one and read about all of the cases, because we're only going to be able to touch a small number. It'd be interesting to know how many people were at the ACL conference, Not Ashamed conference. Can I see a show of hands? Okay, so a few people, which is good, because some of the stories I'm telling tonight are stories that were also told at that event, not by me, but by the clients themselves. You'll have to be happy with my rendition of them. I want to tell you about Australians, ordinary Christians, ordinary religious Australians, and their experiences where their faith has gone up against the wall, come up against attack when they challenge the popular and the fashionable ideologies that are increasingly taking over in our society. The first person I want to tell you about is Jason Tay, a photographer from Western Australia. The second couple I want to tell you about are also from Western Australia, and it's an interesting contrast when you see the difference between how the two have been treated as they go through the legal system. So Jason Tay was originally an engineer, but he has a passion for photography and is a deeply convicted Christian. He particularly has strong convictions on marriage, and he, in giving up his career as an engineer and becoming a photographer, wanted to be part of a celebration of what marriage is, men and women marrying for life. Now, Jason was aware that the legal definition of marriage has increasingly been challenged and that there was change on the horizon. So Jason had already prepared for the situation in which his conscience on marriage might be challenged by a client coming to him. And he had prepared a statement that he would give to clients who wanted him to celebrate, say, same-sex relationships and the like, that said, "My name's Jason Tay, I am a Christian, I have deep convictions on this matter. I know that in order to give my full service, I need to be invested in your occasion. For certain celebrations, I can't do that, but I can recommend you to others who can provide that service." He said to them, "If you still want to use me to take your photos, that's fine." Now, Jason had given people this advice on a number of occasions when they'd come to him with absolutely no consequence. People understood his position. There were plenty of other people who would provide them with photographic services, and they moved on. After the same-sex marriage postal vote and the change in the law, he was approached by a lesbian couple who wanted him to take photos to celebrate his marriage, and he gave him the material that he always gave to his clients. The first thing that happened to Jason was that he was complained about on Facebook. His business on Facebook was targeted by the couple, who took the large and friendly explanation that he had given and cut and pasted the one bit which looked like he had refused to provide them services. This led to about a week of unrelenting attacks on Jason through social media. Each day he would get more and more posts to his Facebook page by activists and by others, condemning him for the stance that he took. Now bear in mind that Jason never actually refused to give anyone any services. Now after about a week, the Facebook posts started to dribble to a halt. Jason thought the worst was over. He wakes up one day and he checks his inbox to see something from the Equal Opportunity Commission. The couple was not happy with merely pressuring Jason on social media. They had made a formal complaint of discrimination under the Equal Opportunity Act in Western Australia, claiming that they had been discriminated against. Now, it's really interesting to get into the minds of people who experience a claim like this. Jason says that his first response was one of disbelief, but one that this wasn't a big deal, that this was all a mistake, that it was going to go away. He phoned up the Equal Opportunity Commission and said, look, there's got to be some mistake. I have not discriminated against anybody. They assured him, this is a real claim, it's serious, you're going to need to respond to the claim and you should get legal advice. Jason felt quite alone when he first received this claim, when he saw the claim against him, and that's when he reached out for help from the Human Rights Law Alliance. Now, Jason was called into the commission, and the first stage is a conciliation where the parties get together and it's hoped that they can talk about their issue and resolve it. Jason was of the view that when he turned up to the commission, there would be a neutrality and impartiality in the way that he would be treated. That there would be an understanding from the people in the commission who deal with these claims day in, day out, that he had not discriminated against anybody. He had merely stated and expressed his beliefs on marriage and given them the option of going somewhere else. That wasn't the case. Jason was put under immense pressure in that conciliation hearing, and it was only because he was accompanied at the last minute by a lawyer who was able to give him some advice and some support that he wasn't pressured into making a settlement which would have included money, an apology, and also some Facebook posts reflecting that he had done the wrong thing, which he wasn't willing to do. Now, Jason was hopeful that after the conciliation, the Commission would say, no case to answer here. There's clearly not been any discrimination, but that wasn't the case. The Commissioner made clear not only were they going to push this case on to the next stage, to the tribunal, they were also going to fund and assist with legal assistance the claimant with this claim against him. This is very difficult for Jason because he had to fund his own legal expenses, and this by now had been going on for 6 months. Eventually, once the matter got to the tribunal, it went through a number of preliminary hearings. The claimant dropped the claim when it came time to make some substantial filings of papers with the court. Now you might say, that's a happy ending, and Jason really didn't face any pressure. But in these situations, the process is often the punishment. Jason went through the stress of having a claim against him, the stress of maybe losing his business because of the claim and the potential monetary damages that could be claimed against him. And he went through 7 months of this preoccupation with a case when he could have been doing his business. I want to take you to another case, a contrasting case, also in Western Australia. This is the case of Chris and Mary. They're a Christian couple. He is a blue-collar worker, a builder, and she is a stay-at-home mum, and she has children who are 5 and 3. A wonderful couple who had heard about the need in Australian society for foster parents. The foster system is heavily overloaded, and they're crying out for people to become foster parents. So Chris and Mary decided to make an application to become foster parents and had some preliminary assessment by 2 social workers. When the social workers came to visit them, they went through a number of questions about who they were, the strength of their relationship, the kind of home that they would provide to a foster child. Because they were new to the system and because they had young children of their own, they made clear that they initially wanted to be respite foster carers. In other words, they would provide emergency support for permanent foster carers on weekends and on days when help was needed, and that they would take in children between the ages of 0 and 5. That way, the children were of about the same age as their own children. As they went through the assessment process, it became apparent that they were Christians, because this is something that they're very clear about. They were then given a series of worksheets to fill out on a whole range of issues, but one set involved questions about children identifying as LGBTQ, or same-sex attracted children, and how they would treat them. Chris and Mary was somewhat flummoxed by that. This is respite care for children between the ages of 0 and 5, not really the kind of children that would present with these kinds of issues. But they quite openly told the social workers of their Orthodox Christian convictions on these matters. The change was dramatic when they said, look, we wouldn't be able to accept a child who identifies as LGBTQ because as Christians we believe that this is a sinful lifestyle choice. If we were in a situation where we had a child placed with us long term, we would never kick them out. While we would not be able to support their lifestyle, we would certainly support the child and treat them as one of our own children. So that's the summary of what they told these assessors. The result was all of a sudden lack of contact. They kept on phoning up to ask when the next assessment was going to be, and they were given delays, and they were given talks about how they would need to fill out more forms and do more worksheets. Eventually they were told that their application had been terminated, and they were told that they were unsafe to foster children because of the beliefs that they expressed. They were absolutely devastated that they had been told that they were unsafe, particularly where they expressed views that had been Orthodox Christian views in the broader church for centuries. So they looked at their options, and they came and spoke to the Human Rights Law Alliance and commenced a claim for discrimination in the same equal opportunity tribunal. Again, there's a great contrast between their case and Jason Kay's case. In this case, the tribunal in the conciliation were largely unhelpful, I think is the word you would use. They didn't see how this couple, Chris and Mary, could possibly have a discrimination claim, and said so in that tribunal. Then, when it came time to determine whether or not there was a possible claim, the commission said, we don't think that you've established that you've been discriminated against because of your Christian beliefs. Now, this in spite of emails where staff internally at this agency had said, we're concerned about their Christian beliefs. We were quite astounded by that. So this matter is now moving through the tribunal in Western Australia and is now 3 or 4 years in with no result yet. So watch this space. But this case is important for anyone who wants to be involved in fostering, because if Orthodox Christians are excluded from fostering, that's going to take a large number of wonderful foster parents out of a system which desperately needs them. And I'm sure that there is a way in our modern society that we can make accommodation of both those with strong religious views and also those who are same-sex attracted without having to drive Christians out of that area of service. I want to tell you about another area. Doctors, lawyers, pharmacists, people whose professions are regulated. These are people whose jobs depend on having a qualification given by a university and then the oversight of a regulator from year to year to continue to practice. In Australia, doctors are regulated by a medical board. This medical board makes sure that they are fit and proper persons to be doctors and to continue to be doctors. One of our clients is a Muslim doctor who was engaged in a Twitter conversation about abortion. He stated that if we're going to talk about privilege in Australia, those people who have survived the birth process shouldn't use their privilege to discriminate against those who are in the womb who have not yet been born. And he made many statements in opposition to abortion. Someone overseas engaged him in conversation and then promptly made a complaint to the medical board about this doctor, saying, "I am concerned that this doctor will not be able to provide proper medical services to all clients, particularly to women who are wanting an abortion." Now, this is a doctor who has never, ever had a complaint by a patient, never had a complaint by another doctor, and yet the medical board has taken this complaint and started an investigation. Now, clearly, the person who made this complaint was not a patient of this doctor, was in fact living overseas and then identified this. Yet, increasingly, these complaints are being accepted and are being processed by this medical board, and they hang over the head of our professionals like the sword of Damocles. Now, you think to yourself, well, that doesn't sound like it would have much legs, because surely it's clearly a vexatious complaint and should be dismissed out of hand. And that's where I want to give you an example of another doctor which suggests that this investigation may go further. Melissa is a doctor who we talk about in this handout here, who's been active on social media, a GP in Victoria, has been providing services for over 15 years, has never had any complaints of discrimination by anybody, yet posts regularly on conservative topics, on issues of sexuality, gender, life, both abortion and euthanasia. Complaints were made by activists anonymously to the medical board, and Melissa has been under investigation for the last 20 months. Not only that, but Melissa has lost her registration as a doctor, where the medical board has used emergency powers to suggest that while they undertake their investigation, she should not be able to practice as a doctor. This is one of the major threats to people who are trying to express themselves in their own personal lives with their Christian beliefs. Melissa is being told that what she has said in her own personal time on social media on these subjects is unacceptable for any doctor. Melissa wrote an article in a Christian newspaper about the medical issues surrounding transgender issues. That was used as evidence against her. So now, while Melissa waits for her appeal to be heard, she's unable to practice medicine and is currently at home with her family. There's not been a full trial. There's not been publicity. There's not been a real chance for her to make arguments as to why she as a doctor should be able to continue to practice, all based on her social media presence. Now, when the emergency powers were exercised, Melissa said, I want to be flexible here. I'll remove every single post from the internet that I've made in my personal time, even though I stand behind them, and I will undertake not to do any more posts in the future. That wasn't good enough. The medical board made a decision after giving only a week's notice to Melissa. That is the experience of not just Melissa, not just the Muslim doctor I talked about before, but many doctors and many professionals who are finding themselves under investigation, finding themselves being pushed out of their professions, finding their voices silenced on issues where we need a wide variety of opinions, a wide variety of people's views and voices, including the Christian voice. There are many other stories I could tell you, and there are a lot more cases. I'd encourage you to pick up one of our brochures and have a look at these. And please keep this work in your prayers because there's lots more to come. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, John. Please note that John and his colleague Alex have a table set up over the side there, and if you have any questions that you want to ask John about anything that he has said, he will be very happy for you to go and talk to him after this session is over. They're also willing to try and help you and assist you if you are someone in a workplace who is experiencing hardship or difficulty because of your expression of your religious beliefs. So feel free to go and talk to them about that. And so I think you would agree, John has shown us that we have good cause to be concerned about the issue of religious freedom in this country.